Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and you know if it's not spoiler season, it's leak season, so we've got two fairly significant leaks. One's actually 3 weeks old, sorry about that, from the new D&D Forgotten Realms set coming up in Magic the Gathering, and the other one is from very recently, last 24 hours it looks like. So first up, we've got Cloister Gargoyle. It's a 0/4 for 3 in white. It's an artifact creature. And when Cloister Gargoyle enters the battlefield, venture into the dungeon. As long as you've completed a dungeon, Cloister Gargoyle gets +3/+0 and has flying. Well, right off the bat, a 0/4 without Defender is pretty good. I kind of wish this cost 2, but being a 3/4 if you've completed a dungeon, whatever that is, that sounds pretty good, depending upon how hard that is. So, time for absolute, unfounded, wanton speculation about what the hell this means. I'm imagining, like, the chance cards from Monopoly, but, like, on it, it's, like, 1 or 2 or 3 achievements, like, based on the dungeon difficulty. So, like, basically a completely different game. Now, if you think that's insane, remember, I'm pretty sure Wizards did this around 2014. I could be wrong. I was so new to Magic, I had no idea, but it might have just been something my store did, but they had like an achievement list where for either the pre-release or FNM, but I want to say pre-release, you would fill out like, a bunch of checkboxes, like 50 different items, like, gained 10 life in 1 turn or more, or got to a life total above 50, killed 3 of your opponent's creatures in 1 turn, won a game before turn 5. So I think at the end of the event, the people with like the top 3 number of achievements, they won like significant extra prizes. So I don't know if that was Wizards doing that or just my store. I think I remember seeing like an official Wizards of the Coast thing on the achievement sheet. So I'm sure you guys are already filling in way more details that are way less fuzzy if you participated in this. So if that was made by Wizards and they did that at an official, like as a funny side thing at an official event, would they then, start putting them on like individual challenge dungeon achievement cards in like an extra deck? Well, it would be a lot simpler to just have it be like a checklist card, and then you like roll a d20, and then whatever one it lands on, that's what you have to complete the dungeon. I mean, it would be really, really, really fun. I mean, it would be totally unfair and unbalanced, but it would be so chaotic and fun and silly, like, as long as you didn't take it too seriously. But then again, this would be at, like, highly competitive in Standard in an official constructed format. So I don't think they'd do that, but I would love to do that. Then again, if I rolled, like, an 11 and it said, gain 1 life or more, and my deck had no way to gain life, well, I guess I'm not completing that dungeon. But maybe, like, not every dungeon was designed to be completable. Maybe one is, kill an opponent's creature and your deck doesn't do that. Maybe it's mill while your deck doesn't do that. Well, then re-roll and get a different dungeon later. Trigger the into the dungeon thing. It sounds like a very binary condition, so it might be as boring as basically just threshold reprinted. It could just be if the game is on turn 6 or more. That'd be a pain to track, but, not completely losing the game on turn 4 doesn't sound much like completing a dungeon, though. I will say, the fact that it's phrased venture into the dungeon, not a dungeon, is interesting. I just wonder if it would actually be like a full-blown minigame. Now, they've done cards like Shahrazad where you literally, like, shuffle and start another game of Magic with a lower life total, and then the winner of that game determines, like, who takes 10 damage or half their life in damage or something like that. And then you resume the old game, so I guess you don't touch permanents that are in play. It was a stupid idea back then. It's a stupid idea now. Sub-games take way too long. They're confusing. There's too many opportunities to cheat. Tracking it is a nightmare. And it took too much time at tournaments because people would just spam the damn spell. Just so that the round would complete, people would forfeit and just take the 10 damage, which was not in the spirit of that card. And that is coming from the actual staff. It's not like I played back then. So in the more recent era, what do they consider a minigame? Well, separate the 5 cards into 2 piles and your opponent picks 1. That's what they consider a minigame. I think they said it could be as big as that, but hopefully not bigger, or as small as just, roll a die, flip a coin. That's a minigame that they find appropriate. And I do agree, and it's kind of as some people love it, some people hate it, but I mean, I like mixing it up. Wizards' idea of mixing things up is to, like, bring out Companion. Like, that was a terrible idea. The math behind it was never supposed to work. But then you look at just like a completely whacked out format like Plane Chase, where it's just complete and utter chaos, And the complete and utter chaos of Commander is why people have fun. So it's like, yeah, sure, that's why I also love Plane Chase. Wacky, interesting, different scenarios that are different every time you play instead of the same repetitive crap, especially on a digital platform where you can play for 3 hours easily and a lot faster with no shuffling and stuff. I mean, like, you do not want the repetition to set in. That is not good. That's why people don't like League. That's why people don't like Fortnite. It became repetitive. Also, League, oh my god, I'll play that game when hell freezes over. I would rather tase myself right in the nuts than play a game where I have to count on other human allies on my team. Not gonna happen. I'd rather be stuck with a half brain dead wall humping AI on my team than have to, like, have another human play up to my competitive standards. And remember, I used to be ultra high ranked in StarCraft 2 and 1. So I'm like esports competitive at some games, and I'm like hyper casual who gives a shit in other games. If you've seen my Generals footage and my Red Alert 2 footage, you know that. I could beat the AI in 60 seconds in those games, okay? Sometimes I just play to have fun while watching, YouTube videos on monitor too. So I think that this Into the Dungeon thing is definitely going to be a mini game. But what is it going to be? I almost hope it's like something really wild. Like, almost like if you've heard of the solitaire format, or maybe you like shuffle your graveyard into your library and then you like kind of war with your opponent. You like, they do the same, and then you both flip up like cards until you hit the first creature, and then they like instantly fight each other and the winner wins the dungeon or something. Something just totally wacky like that, where if it's a dungeon deck, you'd have to also consider, yeah, but I have to win the clashes. I think there actually was a mechanic called Clash, and I think it worked like that. Now, I do think that this is like a binary switch condition that's permanent, kind of like City's Blessing. Remember, get out 10 permanents, and boom, you now have the City's Blessing, and you can't lose it, even if you drop below 10. Because the way this is phrased, remember, is venture into the dungeon as long as you've completed a dungeon. Doesn't say this turn, just you've completed a dungeon. Like, at all this game is the way I'm reading that. It should say as long as you've completed it, or as long as you've completed that dungeon, if they just mean this trigger this turn. So I think it's like a player property or a game property or persistent, there's some term for it. So every time you venture into the dungeon, you do a thing, and then if you complete the dungeon, you get the status of I completed a dungeon. And I do like that, because eventually you're going to beat the dungeon, you're going to gain that status, and then that kind of accelerates the game if it's going on for too many turns. That's why I like Overload and stuff where you pay more, you get more, like Monstrous, where you can make a creature bigger if you pour an enormous amount of mana into it. Because late game, it's like, let's get this game going. We're at a stalemate. It's been 15 turns. Somebody's got to win. Let's go. Last thing you need is top decking a shock spell. Okay, that's not going to help you on turn 15 probably. What you need is to be able to pay 7 and blow your opponent's head off. And then early game, it's not a useless spell. That's why I like the scaling of it. And that's why City's Blessing was like really nice, actually. It upgraded a good portion of your deck. So I got to thinking, let's try to logic this out. This is a Dungeons & Dragons based set. What do you do when you venture into the dungeon? Well, I mean, combat with monsters, get loot, check for traps. I mean, I'm literally just naming like all of D&D. So how the entirety of D&D could be translated into a minigame in Magic, I am completely at a loss. So I could keep guessing, but there's another spoiler to show off. This one was revealed by the wonderful folks over at Pinfinity. They make augmented reality pins, which I guess means that they probably have an app where you hover over it and it shows something in 3D or something. I don't know. I found like an augmented reality puzzle at the dollar store for $1. I think it was it was a real dollar store. Not that Dollar General bullshit where everything's like $4.99. It's just a dirty Walgreens. But yeah, I downloaded the AR app. Once the puzzle was put together, we like did the thing over, and all the animals came to life in 3D and made noise, and it tracked my phone at like freaking 15 FPS. And I'm like, I was blown away by the technology, legit. I actually got it as a present for my niece and nephew, who are a bit younger than me, and I was just like, no, Des is playing with this right now. This is some cool shit. So anyway, I don't know their products, but they said something about AR, so I'm like, oh, I assume that's what that is. It's like Amiibos in real life, but without the RFID chips is what I assume. But yeah, they're doing some pins for the D&D set. I guess they've done some stuff for Hasbro and the D&D brand in the past, but not necessarily Magic, and they, I guess, accidentally showed off this card. It's Dungeon Module R12 Den of the Bugbear, an adventure for characters level 17 to 20. So it basically looks like, I want to say, original D&D cover art and style. So I think what we're looking at here is the other alternative showcase frame, because obviously Cloister Gargoyle was a showcase frame. They made it look like old school paper, like vellum. But remember, now we have like 8 variants. It's basically reached peak Pokemon, where it's like, oh, well, this one's the rainbow full bordered something, borderless, whatever the hell. Then you get like 9 different prices, some of which contradict each other, and nobody knows what the rarities are. So, I mean, we could have like this be the foil etched one or something. I don't know. But I remember seeing some very, very old modules, as I call it, like adventure modules that looked like this. So immediately when I saw this, I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay. I mean, could this be from like a secret lair that goes along with it? Who knows? But I mean, I think we'll see these in the collector's boosters. This could be what they're doing instead of extended art. I mean, there's all these options of where and how they could drop it in. Let's just assume they will and that this is real. So this is a land called, I guess, Den of the Bugbear. And if you would control 2 or more other lands, Den of the Bugbear enters the battlefield tapped. So it's an early land. That might have some outside of standard format usability. You tap it for 1 red, okay. And then if you pay, it looks like 3 + 1 red until end of turn. Den of the Bugbear, oh god, it's a man land. Just kill me now. Becomes a 3/2 red goblin creature with when this creature attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking, it's still a land. Wouldn't it be a bugbear? Wouldn't that make more sense? They probably just didn't want to add the subtype, but wow, that fell apart in a hurry. I don't know, maybe there's a goblin chief in Den of the Bugbear. I actually feel like this is probably a real manual. I could go check, but yeah, honestly, this video is long enough, who cares? But we'll find out more about this when it comes out, you know. But this has like the whole bottom, the hollow stamp, all that. I mean, this has got to be a real card. Come on. So love or hate it, this is what it's going to be. I'm kind of into it. I kind of like it. So a token generating rush land. I hope I'm correct about that being a 3 there. It's really hard to see. Because 4 total mana would be reasonable for that. Anything less than that would not be reasonable at all. But I've zoomed in, I've zoomed out, I've photoshopped it, I've sharpened it. I'm pretty sure that's a 3. So, I mean, okay, sure. I don't think anybody's going to run this in a bombardment deck, you know what I mean? It does give red some mid-game options, so this, like, isn't that bad. But more importantly, what do you think of this style? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or are you indifferent? What we do know is it's number 350-something in the set, which means it's a fairly high up there alternate version. And what do you think of them bringing back Manlands? I have never had a good experience with Manlands in any format ever. They are awful. It always seems like you're never going to defeat them in combat because they're never vanilla, although, well, in this case they are. And even if you do have an instant speed removal, it's going to say non-land permanent. About 60-70% of the time it felt like that's what it was last time, so you couldn't stop it, and the last 2 Manlands printed were the most toxic shit I've seen in my life, so not happy to see another one of those, but honestly a 3/2, I'm gonna block it and kill it, so you better have really needed that goblin and really not needed this land, cause she gone. By the way, those rarity symbols being like old school monocolored ink, I hate that. I absolutely hate that. And look at Cloister Gargoyle again. What the hell is that? What is blue rarity? Is that supposed to be silver? But like, oh, they couldn't really print silver back then, so we're going with just, you know, primary colors, which, when was that ever true? Even with like old school litho printing, that's not how that worked, even with the multi-layer. I have a feeling that they thought it was old school to go with CMYK, which is cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. Does anybody know what the K stands for? I think they had ink mixing technology. You just literally mixed the inks. And I don't think even the first couple books were made with like multi-pass color. So not only do I hate everything about that because it breaks the last, 20 years worth of consistency in the game, but it's not accurate either as far as I know. So screw that, but everything else about this looks kind of cool, but we've already seen some pretty broken cards get leaked/spoiled, so I'm not feeling the set from a playability standpoint, but I'm looking forward to more of the style in the lore. Why did I say lair? But leave your best speculation on what entering the dungeon or venturing into the dungeon is going to be, or leave just a batshit crazy guess, because those are way more entertaining, and I'll see you guys next video.